Is ChatGPT taking over the world? What is next in the world of artificial intelligence? And
it actually only goes all the way back to the 1950s when Dr. Alan Turing, who I'm sure you've heard of, they filmed a documentary-style movie called The Imitation Game that was quite cool. But back in the 1950s, he came up with this concept of machines that could learn. And it became, just after that, became artificial intelligence, thanks to Professor Marvin Minsky out of MIT. You might have seen AI in the media even 20, 30 years ago. Most recently, the big one for me was 2011. Do you remember that one, IBM Watson on Jeopardy? I remember watching that one. That was kind of cool. You had Big Blue beating Gary Kasparov in the 90s. We've had AlphaGo and things like that where it's beating humans in other games. But really, artificial intelligence was not particularly exciting until Google accidentally discovered what we call a transformer architecture in 2017. They were looking for ways to improve Google Translate, and they were looking for ways to translate between English and gendered languages like French or German. And they discovered that when they're allowing this translation model to predict the next word, it could actually predict anything. And that is essentially what we're talking about right now, is artificial intelligence models that can generate and predict the next word, the next note in music, the next movement for a robot arm, the next pixel for an image. And that's only been possible since the 2017 Transformer architecture by Google. And then labs like OpenAI have picked that up and run with it. And you're right to say that OpenAI was founded by Sam Altman from Y Combinator and Elon Musk, although Elon Musk has now distanced himself from the company. And they're one of a handful of labs in the Western world that are doing some pretty impressive stuff. But we won't forget China next door, that's also got the same number of labs doing stuff just as loudly as the Western world and being embraced quite a lot by Asia. Yeah, let's make it as simple as possible. And we can compare this to the output of your iPhone. Have you ever been into your messages or typed a chat message on an iPhone or Android and you've seen that it predicts a word that could come next? That's kind of the results of what we've got here right now. If we look at a big AI model like GPT-3, we'll have to add that buzzword. It was trained on an enormous amount of data, about 1 terabyte of data. They collected it from Wikipedia and from various popular websites. They went and grabbed as many academic journals as they could find, thousands and thousands of books, and then they allowed the black box, the model, to crunch that data over the equivalent of 300 years. They used a supercomputer with 10,000 GPUs, 285,000 CPUs, and after 300 years of parallel processing, maybe a few months in human time, it discarded all the original data, so it's not actually, doesn't have access to Wikipedia anymore, and it can't go and search Google, but it's got, like you say, it's got the synapses, connections between neurons, and it has made these connections between data points, a little bit like the human brain. And from that black box, those connections that it's created, it can predict essentially anything. Some of my colleagues say you can solve any problem that can be solved with language. So you can ask it to write a poem or a book or a song or generate a piece of art, because what it's learned in that training process, those connections can be applied to anything. And that's kind of magic. We're even seeing that capability being extended to video and audio as well. We can generate music from that as well. I believe I'm the only person to do the full analysis of that. I've got a paper called What's in My AI, and you can have a read of that paper for free. It looks it has a very in-depth look at exactly which domains we went and played with, exactly which Wikipedia articles split down to the category. It's about 750 gig of data, and if you compared that to a number of books, it would be quite a number of libraries that it's gone and trained on. We can get even bigger with that data, but right now it's 750 gig for something like GPT-3. And the winner, the number one data collector at the moment, is an Alphabet subsidiary by the name of DeepMind. they went and collected 10.5 terabytes after filtering of data from around the world. That's books and articles and papers and web crawl, all ready for that data to be absorbed by the model and then discarded and the connections kept. That's right. Well, the data scientists at these big labs like OpenAI and DeepMind and Google have been quoted as saying, we don't actually know. We know what we did. We know that we gave it data and we let it make connections, but we don't know how it's able to write books or how it's able to be tested on an exam that didn't exist before it was trained, so it definitely couldn't have memorized that. We don't know how it's conceptualizing images. I don't know if they would be comfortable going on record for that in this kind of interview, but certainly in their papers, they've said this is a black box. We don't know what it's thinking. We don't know exactly how it's doing things. And it's not just that it's gone and passed the MBA exam at Wharton or the medical licensing exam. Exactly. They ran it past a multi-state bar exam and they had that completely peer-reviewed. That's fascinating. Those questions don't exist online. Like the actual exam doesn't exist online. There's no way it could have gone and memorized that data. And it's essentially conceptualizing and thinking about the best ways to answer those kind of jurisprudence questions. Fascinating. Essentially, yeah, it did go and teach itself mathematics. So in the original GPT-3 paper by OpenAI, they actually went back inside the data set to check how many one-digit addition problems were in its data set. So 1 plus 1 through to 9 plus 9. How many 2-digit and 3-digit operations or algorithms were in there? They found that only about 0.1% of the possible calculations were in its data set, and it had actually gone and taught itself what an operator was and then what maths was. And now you've seen it's to the level where a model like Google Palm can pass the Polish maths exam or the same equivalent in the United Kingdom. That's kind of scary. I've been accused of being an avatar and an AI with my Lita AI series, which is now towards 3 million views, because she or it looks like a human. And using GPT-3 sounds like a human. It's invented its own words. It's looked at photos that I've given it and kind of been able to analyze body language.
Right.
She's written jokes. It's a really, really confronting conversation. 65 episodes of Lita AI, and some people still thinking that maybe I'm an AI as well because we look pretty similar. Well, we've got to make sure to mention the date for this one. We're talking here in January, February 2023, and my analysis here might be out of date in a few weeks. Steve Wozniak, one of the founders of Apple, said that maybe we should design a coffee test for AI, or where it could go into a kitchen, an embodied artificial intelligence, analyze that new environment and actually make a cup of coffee. I think that's a pretty good test because it's a human-like activity, or it's a human activity that's kind of tricky. It involves finding the coffee, finding the machine, finding the cups, navigating the kitchen, maybe having a conversation at the same time, and it's everything at once for an embodied AI.